With a newborn baby on the way and a blizzard raging outside, Jesse Huler's world crumbled when his furnace gave out. What he received instead of a bill was an act of kindness, so profound, it restored his faith in humanity. The biting Minnesota wind howled a mournful song, a prelude to the symphony of snow that was about to descend upon the small town of Willmar. Inside their cozy, if slightly drafty, two-story home, Jesse and Maria Huler were a picture of anticipatory joy, tinged with the quiet anxieties that come with impending parenthood. Jesse, a carpenter with hands roughened by years of working wood, possessed a gentle heart that belied his sturdy frame. Maria, a kindergarten teacher, radiated warmth and a quiet strength, even now, in the final days of her pregnancy with their second child. Their 2-year-old, Noah, a whirlwind of blonde curls and boundless energy, was currently captivated by a stack of brightly colored blocks, oblivious to the impending storm and the subtle tension that hummed beneath the surface of his parents' preparations. He was a miniature explorer, his world a kaleidoscope of new discoveries, each day a fresh adventure. He had only a vague understanding of the baby in Mommy's tummy, but he knew something big was about to happen. He'd point at Maria's belly and proudly announce, "Baby!" Jesse and Maria's life wasn't easy. The carpenter's work was seasonal, and the Minnesota winters could be brutal on their finances. Maria's teacher's salary helped, but they lived paycheck to paycheck, carefully budgeting for every necessity. This second pregnancy had been harder on Maria. The morning sickness had lingered longer, a constant, wearying companion. They'd had a scare a few weeks back, a false alarm that had sent them rushing to the hospital, hearts pounding with fear, only to be reassured that the baby was fine. The relief had been immense, but the financial strain of the extra doctor's visit was a weight they carried. Christmas decorations adorned their living room, a testament to Maria's unwavering optimism. Twinkling lights cast a warm glow on the hand-knitted stockings hanging by the fireplace, a fireplace that, crucially, relied on the furnace below. Outside, the first flakes of snow began to fall, fat and lazy at first, then with increasing intensity. The local news, playing softly on the old television in the corner, issued a blizzard warning, the weatherman's voice grave as he described the expected accumulation and dangerous wind chills. Jesse, ever watchful, kept glancing out the window. He'd grown up in Minnesota. He knew the ferocity of these storms. He knew how quickly they could transform the familiar landscape into a treacherous, white wilderness. His initial concern was practical, making sure they had enough food, water, and firewood. But a deeper worry gnawed at him. Maria was due to be discharged from the hospital with their newborn son, Adler, tomorrow. The thought of bringing a newborn home to a freezing house filled him with a primal fear. The first sign of trouble came subtly. The furnace, an aging beast that had served them faithfully with the occasional grumble, started cycling on and off more frequently. The gentle hum that usually accompanied its operation was punctuated by a new, unsettling rattling sound. Jesse, ever the handyman, went down to the basement, flashlight in hand. He poked and prodded, checked the filters, and tried the reset button, but the rattling persisted. He even tried a few gentle, and then not-so-gentle, kicks, a technique that had surprisingly worked on occasion. This time, however, the furnace remained stubbornly erratic. As the evening wore on, the temperature inside the house began to noticeably drop. Jesse layered blankets on Noah, who, thankfully, found the extra warmth to be a delightful novelty. But Jesse's anxiety ratcheted up with each degree the thermostat ticked downward. He knew they couldn't weather a blizzard in a house without heat, especially not with a newborn. He felt a cold knot of dread forming in his stomach. He had to do something, and he had to do it fast. Jesse started making calls. He dialed the numbers of local HVAC companies, one after another, his voice tight with a growing desperation. Each call was met with the same response. "We're booked solid. We can't get anyone out there until after the storm. We're prioritizing emergencies." The word emergency hung in the air, a cruel irony. To Jesse, this was an emergency. His family's safety was at stake. He described his situation, emphasizing the imminent arrival of his newborn son. He pleaded, he bargained, he practically begged. But the responses remained unchanged, a chorus of polite refusals and unhelpful suggestions. Each failed call chipped away at his hope, leaving him feeling increasingly helpless and alone. He imagined Maria cradling their newborn son in the sterile warmth of the hospital, blissfully unaware of the crisis unfolding at home. He didn't want to worry her, not now. He wanted to be the strong one, the protector. Finally, almost in despair, he dialed the number for Magnus and Sheet Metal, a local company he'd seen advertised but never used. A man answered, his voice calm and reassuring, even amidst the background noise of what sounded like a busy office. Jesse poured out his story, his voice cracking with emotion. He explained about the baby, the blizzard, the failing furnace. He didn't hold back, letting his fear and desperation spill out. The man on the other end of the line, who, though Jesse didn't know it yet, was Craig Arond, the owner of the company, listened patiently. He didn't interrupt, didn't offer excuses. He simply listened. And then, when Jesse had finished, he said, "We'll get someone out there as soon as we can." It wasn't a promise of immediate arrival, but it was something. It was a lifeline in a sea of despair. Jesse clung to that hope, repeating the words to himself like a mantra. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Maria was experiencing a different kind of emotional turmoil. Holding Adler, her tiny, perfect son, in her arms, she felt an overwhelming surge of love. But mixed with that love was a gnawing worry. She hadn't been able to reach Jesse for the past hour. Her calls went straight to voicemail. She knew he was probably busy dealing with the storm preparations, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She tried to distract herself by focusing on Adler. She traced the delicate contours of his face, marveling at his tiny fingers and toes. She whispered promises to him, promises of love, protection, and a warm, safe home. But the image of their cozy house, suddenly threatened by the impending blizzard, kept intruding on her thoughts. Finally, her phone rang. It was Jesse. His voice was strained, but he tried to sound upbeat. He told her he was getting everything ready for their arrival, that he couldn't wait to have them home. He didn't mention the furnace. He didn't want to add to her worries. Maria, however, was perceptive. She could hear the underlying tension in his voice, the slight hesitation before he answered her questions. She knew him too well. "Jesse," she said softly, "is everything all right?" He paused for a moment, then sighed. "The furnace is acting up," he admitted, "but I've got someone coming to look at it. It'll be fine." He tried to sound confident, but Maria could hear the doubt in his voice. She squeezed her eyes shut, a silent prayer escaping her lips. "Please be careful," she whispered. "We'll be home soon." Hours crawled by. Jesse paced the living room, checking the thermostat, wrapping Noah in more blankets. The wind howled louder, the snow piling up against the windows. He jumped every time the phone rang, hoping it was the repairman. Finally, headlights cut through the swirling snow. A truck, emblazoned with the Magnus and Sheet Metal logo, pulled up to the curb. A man, bundled in a heavy parka and work boots, emerged from the vehicle. He looked tired, but his eyes held a determined focus. Jesse rushed out to meet him, relief flooding through him. The repairman, whose name was Dale, introduced himself and quickly got to work. He disappeared into the basement, the sounds of clanging metal and the whir of tools filling the otherwise silent house. Jesse hovered nearby, offering coffee and answering Dale's questions about the furnace's history. They talked, not just about the furnace, but about their families. Jesse shared his excitement and anxieties about becoming a father again. Dale, in turn, talked about his own children, grown now, and the challenges of raising a family in a small town. There was a quiet camaraderie between them, a shared understanding of the burdens and joys of fatherhood. After what seemed like an eternity, Dale emerged from the basement, wiping his hands on a rag. "All fixed," he announced. "It was a faulty igniter. Should be good to go now." The relief that washed over Jesse was immense. He felt the tension drain from his body, replaced by a profound gratitude. He thanked Dale profusely, offering to pay him whatever it took. Dale smiled, a weary but genuine smile. "Don't worry about it," he said. Just get ready for that new baby. He packed up his tools, shook Jesse's hand, and headed back out into the storm. The house was warm again. The gentle hum of the furnace was the most beautiful sound Jesse had ever heard. He felt a surge of protectiveness towards his home, his family, this warm haven he had created against the raging storm outside. He watched Noah sleep, bundled in blankets, his tiny chest rising and falling rhythmically. He felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude, not just for the working furnace, but for the kindness of the stranger who had braved the blizzard to help them. Jesse knew the bill would be substantial. Emergency service on a night like this wouldn't come cheap. He was prepared for that. He'd figure it out somehow. He'd work extra shifts, cut back on expenses, whatever it took. The safety and well-being of his family were worth any price. A few days later, the invoice arrived in the mail. Jesse ripped open the envelope, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and dread. He unfolded the paper, his eyes scanning the lines of text. He expected to see a hefty sum, a number that would make him wince. But the number wasn't there. Instead, in the space where the total should have been, were these words, handwritten in a neat, careful script. No charge. Take care of the new baby. Jesse stared at the invoice, his mind struggling to comprehend what he was seeing. He read the words again and again, as if they might change, might reveal the actual cost. But they didn't. They remained the same, a simple, stunning act of generosity. He felt a lump forming in his throat, tears welling up in his eyes. He couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe the kindness of this stranger, this company that had prioritized his family's needs over their own profit. It was more than just a free repair. It was a gift, a gesture of profound humanity. He immediately called Maria, his voice choked with emotion. "You won't believe this," he said, his voice trembling. He read the words on the invoice to her, the silence on the other end of the line punctuated only by Maria's soft gasp. "Oh, Jesse," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder and gratitude. That's incredible." They talked for a long time, sharing their disbelief and their overwhelming appreciation. They talked about the kind of world they wanted to raise their children in, a world where such acts of generosity were not so rare, a world where people looked out for each other. Jesse, fueled by a desire to understand this extraordinary act of kindness, decided to do some research. He looked up Magnus and Sheet Metal online. He read the reviews, which were overwhelmingly positive, praising not only the company's quality of work, but also their commitment to the community. He saw words like honest, reliable, and caring repeated over and over again. He felt a growing conviction that he needed to share this story. He needed to tell the world about this small company, this act of kindness that had touched his family so deeply. He logged onto social media and began to type, his words pouring out of him, a testament to the power of human connection. Jesse's posts spread like wildfire. It started with his friends and family, then rippled outward, shared and reshared across the local community and beyond. People were moved by the story, by the simple act of generosity that had resonated so deeply. They left comments, expressing their admiration for Magnus and Sheet Metal, sharing their own stories of kindness and community. The local newspaper picked up the story, running a front-page article about the HVAC heroes who had braved the blizzard to help a family in need. The reporter tracked down Craig O'Rond, the owner of Magnus and Sheet Metal, and asked him about the incident. The interview took place in Craig's modest office, a space filled with the tools of his trade and photos of his family. Craig, a man of few words, seemed almost embarrassed by the attention. He was a quiet, unassuming man with a weathered face and kind eyes. He didn't see himself as a hero. He was just doing what he thought was right. "We've all been there," he said, his voice a low rumble. "We've all needed a little help at some point. It's just the right thing to do." The reporter pressed him further, asking about the specific circumstances of the Huler family. Craig hesitated, then shared a story from his own past. Years ago, when his own children were young, he had faced a similar crisis. A sudden illness, a mounting medical bill, and a broken-down car had left him feeling helpless and overwhelmed. A local mechanic, seeing his distress, had fixed his car for free, telling him to pay it forward when he could. That act of kindness had stayed with Craig, shaping his own approach to business and to life. He had built Magnus and Sheet Metal on the principles of honesty, integrity, and community service. He believed that business was about more than just making money. It was about building relationships and supporting the people around you. It's not about the money, he explained. It's about being a good neighbor. It's about doing what you can to make your community a better place. The article resonated deeply with readers, sparking a wave of support for Magnus and Sheet Metal. People called the company not just for service, but to express their appreciation. Some sent cards and letters. Others offered donations. The company's phone lines were buzzing, their social media accounts flooded with messages of gratitude. One day, a few weeks after the blizzard, Jesse and Maria, with Adler bundled safely in a carrier, decided to visit Magnus and Sheet Metal in person. They wanted to thank Craig and Dale, to express their gratitude face-to-face. They found Craig in his office, poring over blueprints. He looked up, surprised to see them. Jesse introduced himself and Maria and little Adler, who gurgled happily. "We just wanted to come and thank you," Jesse said, his voice thick with emotion. "For everything." Craig smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "It was the right thing to do." But Jesse insisted. He told Craig how much his act of kindness had meant to them, how it had restored their faith in humanity. Maria added her thanks, her eyes sparkling with tears. They talked for a long time, sharing stories and laughter. They discovered a shared love for the community, a shared commitment to making Willmar a better place. They were no longer strangers. They were friends, connected by a bond of gratitude and shared humanity. The story of the Huler family and Magnus and Sheet Metal became a local legend, a reminder of the power of kindness and the importance of community. It was a story that was retold countless times, passed down from neighbor to neighbor, a testament to the enduring human spirit. Magnus and Sheet Metal continued to thrive, not because of the publicity, but because of their genuine commitment to their customers and their community. They became known not just for their quality work, but for their big hearts. The Huler family, too, flourished. Adler grew into a healthy, happy boy, surrounded by the love of his family and the warmth of their home. They never forgot the kindness they had received, and they made it a point to pay it forward whenever they could, helping others in need, just as they had been helped. Years later, Jesse would often tell Adler the story of the blizzard and the broken furnace, the story of the kind stranger who had come to their rescue. It was a story that taught Adler the importance of compassion, the power of community, and the enduring truth that even the smallest act of kindness can make a world of difference. It was a story, ultimately, not about a furnace, but about the warmth of the human heart. It was a testament that even in the coldest of winters and the harshest conditions, the warmth of human kindness can prevail, a beacon of hope shining brightly against the backdrop of a world often too focused on the transactional. It was a reminder that we are all connected, that we all have the power to make a difference, and that sometimes the greatest gifts come in the most unexpected packages. The ripples of that simple act of generosity continued to spread, far beyond the snow-dusted streets of Willmar. The online article about Magnus and Sheet Metal, initially shared within the local community, began to gain traction on a national level. Bloggers picked it up, parenting websites featured it, and even a few national news outlets ran segments on the small-town heroes who had prioritized a newborn baby over profit. The comment sections on these articles and posts were a testament to the story's power. People from all walks of life, from all corners of the country, were touched by the Huler's experience and Craig Oran's quiet act of kindness. Many shared their own stories of unexpected generosity, moments when strangers had stepped in to offer help, support, or simply a kind word. It was as if the story had unlocked a reservoir of shared human experience, a reminder that even in a world often perceived as cynical and self-serving, goodness still existed. Some commenters expressed skepticism, questioning whether the story was too good to be true, or accusing Magnus and Sheet Metal of staging the event for publicity. But the overwhelming majority were positive, embracing the story as a much-needed antidote to the negativity that often dominated the news cycle. One particular comment from a woman in California stood out. She wrote about how she had been struggling with a similar situation: a broken furnace, a young child, and limited funds. She had been on the verge of despair when she read the story about the Hulers. It had given her hope, she said, and the courage to reach out to a local charity, which had promptly arranged for a repair. "This story saved me," she wrote. "It reminded me that I wasn't alone." These kinds of responses became increasingly common. The story wasn't just about a repaired furnace. It was about the power of hope, the importance of community, and the ripple effect of kindness. It was a demonstration of how one small act could inspire countless others, creating a chain reaction of goodwill. Meanwhile, back in Willmar, life continued for the Hulers and the Orons. Jesse and Maria settled into the rhythms of parenthood with 2 young children. Noah, initially a little jealous of the attention Adler received, quickly embraced his role as big brother, showering his little sibling with clumsy affection. Jesse, inspired by Craig's example, started volunteering his carpentry skills at a local community center, helping to build and repair homes for families in need. He found a deep satisfaction in using his skills to give back, to make a tangible difference in the lives of others. Maria, too, found ways to integrate the lessons of the blizzard into her teaching. She emphasized the importance of empathy, compassion, and community service in her classroom, encouraging her young students to look out for each other and to find ways to help those around them. She even started a kindness club where students could brainstorm and implement small acts of kindness within the school and the wider community. The friendship between the Huler and Oron families deepened. They celebrated birthdays together, shared holiday meals, and became a regular presence in each other's lives. Craig, a naturally reserved man, found himself opening up to Jesse and Maria, sharing stories about his life, his family, and his business. He even admitted, with a sheepish grin, that he had initially been overwhelmed by the attention the story had received, but that he was now grateful for the opportunity to share his message of community and compassion with a wider audience. One spring evening, several months after the blizzard, Jesse and Maria hosted a barbecue at their home. The weather was warm, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and grilling food. Noah and Adler, now a giggling, crawling baby, played on the lawn, while the adults sat on the porch, talking and laughing. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the scene, Jesse raised his glass in a toast. "To kindness," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "To community, and to the unexpected blessings that life sometimes brings." The others raised their glasses, echoing his words. They knew that the story of the blizzard and the broken furnace was more than just a story. It was a reminder of the enduring power of human connection, a testament to the simple truth that even in the darkest of times, the light of kindness can always find a way to shine through. And it was a story that they would continue to share, a legacy of warmth and generosity that would ripple outwards, touching countless lives for years to come. It wasn't just a story about a repaired furnace. It was a story about the enduring power of the human spirit, a testament to the fact that even the smallest acts of kindness can have a profound and lasting impact, not just on the recipients, but on the givers and on the wider world. It was a reminder that we are all connected, that we all have the capacity for both great challenges and great compassion, and that sometimes the most extraordinary moments in life arise from the most ordinary of circumstances.